All right, guys, now I'm going to show you a tutorial on how to do a watercolor background to resemble the universe or outer space where Steven Universe is in this art piece. And what you'll need is a palette of watercolor. It could be any brand, a cup of clean water or bowl, watercolor brush. I'm using just a regular, well, it's kind of a thick one, and then a couple thin ones. Not necessary, but okay, let's go. I'm going to take some masking tape, and I recommend doing this because we're using watercolor paper. That is much different than copy paper and regular drawing paper. It's thicker and it can absorb the liquid. If you do not have watercolor paper, there's also mixed media paper. So check with your folks to see what kind you have, or check the front of the pad of paper to see what it says. And let me know if you don't have watercolor paper, and I'll find some alternative ideas. Okay, so for our universe, I'm gonna just wet the paper slightly with clean water. I'm not gonna go too heavy. I just want to get it wet a little bit. The other trick is you want to wet your pans, P-A-N-S. That is what these little circles are called. And you only need to put them on the colors that you're going to use today. This is just going to wake up the watercolor. You don't want to drown the palette. You just want to wake up the colors and prep them to go. Okay? All right. So the colors that I see in the universe here, they're bright colors like magentas, purples, turquoise, some yellows, some yellow greens. Okay, so that'll be up to you, really. But whatever color selection you're going to use, you want to make sure that when you get your pan wet and now you're ready to get the color on your brush, you don't want to dig or stab. You really just want to rock, okay? Or you could pet. I like to say rock it like a piggy rolling in the mud. The more that you do this, the stronger the color. So you don't want to just do it once or twice. And there's no need to dig. It's not going to help get more color. It's just the more rolling and twisting you get the color on your brush. Okay, and then you're going to drop the color down. I'm not painting it, I'm dropping it down. So I'm just going to play back and forth between the amount of water and color. When you're changing colors, have a paper towel handy so you can clean your brush on that, and make sure your brush is wet before switching over to another color. If you want to lighten a color, add water. If you want to darken a color, less water and more color. Now, you just want to be careful not to use complementary colors super close together when you have wet paint, because it tends to cancel each other out. And by complementary colors, I mean yellow and purple. They're beautiful next to one another, but when you mix them, they cancel each other out and turn into a brown or a gray or a neutral. Red and green also cancel each other out, and so do blue and orange. So you can use those colors, just try not to use them next to one another. Unless you do want brown, some brown action in your art. You can also kind of lay colors down to mix, like magenta and turquoise. If you keep mixing, are going to make purple or some kind of interesting mix in between. So I'm going fast. You don't have to go this fast. Just trying to get some color down to show you the steps. I know I'm being a bit of a rebel. I'm using colors I told you not to use next to each other. You gotta watch out for me. Okay, so when you're happy with the amount of color, there's a couple of tricks that you can do to get kind of a sparkly effect. I'm going to choose, get some clean water so you can change your water. I'm going to use a little brush. And you could actually use a pen for this. You don't need to use, for the knocking, you don't need to use two brushes if you don't have them, or a small brush, whatever. So I'm holding it high and knocking, and you're going to start to see some sparkles or little spots on the paper, which is a cool effect to suggest stars. But you don't want to go too crazy with this because it will eventually disappear. If you put too much water, everything will just come together. See that huge mess right there? So if you do have a huge puddle, take a dry brush and just lay it on top. And it'll drink up that puddle, unless you want the puddle there. I'm going to put it back. And I'm going to show you another little trick. Which is to use what's called kosher salt or rock salt or even table salt. And you can just take a little bit, drop it down when you're ready for this step. Once you put the salt, you don't want any more color added to your work, because what the salt is doing is it's drinking up the color and it's going to make a nice kind of pattern on your work. And then once we have this, we're just going to let it sit. Okay, don't mess with it or add anything to it. You can clean up your space and then we can go back to class. Okay, and I'll show you the other steps. Let's go.